All right, grade 5. At this point, we're going to move into reading and writing decimal numbers. So the importance about decimal numbers is that they give you what's called precision. They allow you to be more specific than just what you would have from a whole number. So realizing the more decimal places a number has, the more precise it is, the more exact. For example, if we have 0.12 or 12 hundredths, it is more precise than 0.1 or 1/10. Can you think of some examples when very precise decimal numbers can come in handy? Press pause and do that now with your elbow partners. When would decimal numbers be valuable? All right, hopefully you were able to come up with all kinds of examples. Definitely money place value, decimal place value is extremely important. When it comes to weight or size, things like that, decimal numbers can be extremely important. Lots and lots of places. Now let's take a look at decimal place value and how it works. So when we look at decimal place value, decimal numbers are any numbers that represent a value less than 1. So that's the important here. It's a value less than 1. When we use a decimal point to represent that a number can be less than 1, sorry, lost my little pointer here. A number can be less than 1. So our decimal point is the important part that tells us we're moving into a number less than 1. So the decimal, of course, is our dot that we see. We would represent a single cookie with the number 1, but we can still represent a quarter of a cookie by writing 0.25 or 25 hundredths. That is the decimal number for a quarter. Think about our money. A quarter. That is a quarter of a dollar. It is worth 25 cents. You'll often find that money and decimals are very much related. In 0.25 or 25 hundredths, the 0 is what we call the whole number. The numbers to the right of the decimal place show how large the part of a whole it is. So it's only 0.25 less than a whole, I guess, in this case, because it's a 0 in front. All right, let's take a look at place value with decimals into a large number with a decimal number. So when we look at place value, we already talked about the fact that there is something called symmetry in our place value system. So we have the ones, that's kind of our middle point. And then we can see that we have the tens, which would be like the tenths, the hundreds, the hundredths, the thousands, the thousandths. So there is symmetry to our place value system, which is helpful. Our decimal place is always after the ones place. Okay. So a place value chart can again be very helpful when we are looking at decimal numbers. Let's get rid of that for a second there. So we would say this number like we said the number before, ignoring our decimals at this point. So we would say the front portion of our number like we have before. So 9,831, and our decimal is always represented by the word and. So again, that would be 9,000 831 and 642. Oops, let me erase that. 600, my eraser's not working. Okay, pretend that that mark is not there. I'm not sure why it's not erasing. 642 thousandths. So we always say the name of the last place value position. So let's try that again. 9,831 and 642 thousandths. Make sure you don't forget the th part. That's the key that tells us it's part of a decimal number. So that's how we would say that number. That's what the place value chart looks like. All right, we are now going to talk about place value and what it actually represents. So we have a ones, okay, that's one big square. When we have the tenths, what we're actually doing is we're taking this whole one and dividing it into 10 little pieces, okay? When we have a tenth, and we want to make it a hundredth, we're actually taking one row and dividing that one row into 10 pieces. So we can see there's that relationship of 10 again. 1/10 is 10 pieces, which makes it a hundredth. 1 is 10 pieces in tenths, which makes it tenths. And we would continue that same pattern if we have 1,000ths. Oops, sorry, that should have been my highlighter. If we have 100th, excuse me, then one square is actually divided into 10 little pieces. Very hard to see there. So again, that now means there are 1,000 pieces, 10 times 10 times 10, in this whole section. Okay, so a decimal is always the same amount, but it's now divided differently. It's divided into 10 pieces, it's divided into 100 pieces, it's divided into 1,000 tiny little pieces. Now, again, a place value chart can be very helpful. You're going to have to copy this. So your choice, press pause and copy, or follow along and copy after, up to you. So when we talk about a place value chart, we still have our front portion, hundreds, 100 millions, 10 millions, millions, 100,000s, 10,000 thousands, hundreds, tens. Oops, that should be ones. Change that to ones. And then we have what's new. We have our decimal place. We have our tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and 10,000ths. Notice, really important, you need the THS on each of those, so don't forget. All right, the first one we'll put in together. So we have this number here. Okay, we're going to put that one in. In this case, when we have a decimal number, I like to start at the decimal point myself. You can start at the beginning of the number or the end, your choice. So I'm going to start with my decimal number. After my decimal number, I have 126, so 126. I don't have anything in the 10,000s place. I could fill it with a 0, I'm not going to. And then in front of it, I have 534 in the units period, and a 7 in the thousands place. So I would say this number as 7,543 and 126 thousandths, because that is my last place value position. We'll try one more, and then you'll do the other two on your own. So I'm going to just change my color here. Now, again, I'm going to start with my decimal. Oh, and again, remember, I would draw one place value chart and then just add your rows so you're not having to do all of this writing over and over again. So again, I have my decimal. After my decimal, I have 1357. So I'm now going to fill all of my place value positions after the decimal. And in front of my decimal, I just have 89. So I would say this number as 89 and 1,357 10,000ths. Kind of weird. All right, go ahead and press pause and try the next two with your elbow partners or with your group members. Go ahead. All right, let's see how you did. So again, decimal, decimal. Right after the decimal, we just have 24. In front of the decimal, we have 0, 4, 5, and then a 6 in the thousands place. So 6,045 and 24 hundredths, because that is the last place value position. All right, last one. Here's our decimal place again. After our decimal, we have 0, 5, 7. In front of our decimal, we have 3, 0, 0, 9. So we would say that as 9,003 and 57 thousandths, because that is in the thousands place. All right, let's talk about the value of our zero. Zero in decimal numbers is extremely important. A zero in the furthest right place of a decimal doesn't change its value. What that means is if we were to add a decimal to the end of our number, does not change the value of that number. However, a zero in any other place than the furthest right does change the value. Okay. If I have 1 and 2 tenths, like you see here, versus 1.02, that is now 1 and 2 hundredths. So remember, think about our division of our amount, our ones, right? So we have our ones, and then when we go into the tenths, it's taking that ones and dividing it into 10 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And when we're talking hundredths, we're taking each of those rows and dividing it into tiny little pieces. So it would be 2 of those. So 2 tiny little pieces compared to 2 rows, drastically different. So that means that this number is larger than this number. What we could do to help us compare them is we could put a 0 right in there to help. We will talk more about comparing decimal numbers a little bit later, but just make sure you realize the 0 and where it is very important. All right, reading and writing decimal numbers. Again, this will need to be copied. Your choice. You can pause and copy now, or you can pause and copy after we've discussed it. So first, word form is what we're going to focus on, word form. So we look at our number. We say the front part of the number like we would any large number. So 7,543, like we learned before. Then the decimal is always said as and. So 7,543 and then you read this next set of numbers all together as you would a large number, 126. And then we need to add the name of our last place value position. So this is where it's important for you to remember and know your place value positions. Remember, this one is the tenths, then comes the hundredths, then comes the thousandths. So this would then be said as 7,543 and 126 thousandths, because that last digit is in the thousandths place. For commas, we still put commas in for the spaces between our periods and when we're putting them into word form. We also need to remember to hyphenate numbers that are between 20 and 99 that need two words, so just like before. So again, in word form, you're going to write 7,000, don't forget about your comma, 543 and, as your place, your decimal, sorry, 126 hundredths. That's supposed to be thousandths. Let's correct that right now. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths, yeah, thousandths. My mistake. 126 thousandths. And again, if you haven't copied, press pause and copy now. If you have copied, go right ahead and continue along. All right, now you're going to write these numbers into word form yourself. If it's helpful, you can always put them in a place value chart to begin with to assist you with that. Go ahead and try that first one with your group members. Press pause and try that first one with your group members together. All right, let's see how you did with your group members. So again, I'm going to start with this portion together, 89. Hyphenated because it is a two-digit number, or a two-word number, excuse me. And then I had my decimal. So decimal is and then I put all of those numbers together. 1,357 hyphen, because that's a two-word number. And then we need the last place value position. Well, the 7 is in the thousandths place, though, so thousandths. All right, now on your own, try the next two, and then you can compare with your elbow partners, and we'll mark it in a moment. Press pause and do the next two. All right, let's see how you did. I'm going to need to make myself some room here. All right, we're looking at number B. So our front number, we have 6,000. We do have the break there as space, so 6,000 comma. Then we have our 45. 45 is a two-word number. We need our hyphen. Ooh, that does not look very hyphenish. It looks like I've joined those. Let's fix that. 45. And because we have come across our decimal, then we have 24. Again, a two-word number. And then we need our last place value position. It is now in the hundredths place. So I'm going to add the word hundredth. Oops, hundredth. Make sure you add that TH again. And now let's take a look at C, our last one. Again, let me make myself some room there. 9,000. Oh dear, I almost wrote the number again. 9,000. Again, I have my break there, so I need my comma. 3. And for our decimal, here we don't say the 0, just say the 57 part. And how do we know where the 57 is? Well, we need to say our last place value position. Our 7 is in the tenths, hundredths, thousandths place. So we need thousandths. So we would say that as 9,003 and 57 thousandths. All right, now you're off to do your practice sheets. Away you go.